It's a big day for us. We're excited to be here to make this announcement. I think everyone hopefully got our announcement that at 10 o'clock today, the Mountain West Conference has officially notified the world that we've been invited to join the Mountain West Conference. And we are very, very excited about that opportunity. I've got a few comments I want to make to start out with, and then I'll just open it up for questions. But I want to take this opportunity to say what a privilege it is and a pleasure it is for me to be the athletic director at UTEP. I have the opportunity to serve a great group of coaches, a great staff to work with, and our student athletes, 335 plus, give or take, strong. And they're a joy to work with. They're a pleasure to have on our campus. And, you know, one of the things that, regardless of whether you win, lose, or draw, we're using sports as a metaphor for life to teach young people what it's like, right? To experience the highs of life and the lows of life, to overcome adversity. We're here to educate people as a number one goal. And it just so happens we get to educate 18 to 22-year-olds. We have a few that might be 23, 24, 25, somewhere in there, because they've been around for a while. But it really is a thrill and a pleasure and a privilege to be able to do that. So when you make a change in a conference alignment, when something as significant as this occurs, it's a really, really big deal, because there's a lot of people that are affected by that. I also want to take the opportunity, and I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Conference USA. Conference USA has been a great place for the minors for a lot of different reasons. But when we needed a conference, they were there for us. We've gone through the highs and the lows with them through other conference realignment. The conference commissioners over the years have been very friendly towards UTEP, have embraced us, even though we've kind of been the lone outpost to the farthest point west. They've always been here for us. And we appreciate that more than you all probably know, and more than they will probably ever realize. While it hasn't always been the most favorite spot for our fan base, rightfully so and understood, we've had great contests we've competed for and won championships, and we'll continue to do that in whatever conference that we're in. We're really grateful and appreciative of the opportunity that the Mountain West Conference has extended to us. This process has gone very, very quickly. It's been very, very professional. It has involved a very, very small, close group of people, which is why you really haven't seen anything in the media. And I know you all are in the media. You all want to know what's going on, and you want answers to your questions, as do lots of other people on the national scene. And what I've learned, and what Dr. Wilson and I both believe in, is the fact that you don't do your work publicly. You do your work professionally. You do it with confidentiality, because it is sensitive information, and there's a lot of data and analysis and thoughtfulness that needs to go into these kinds of opportunities. And we've been doing that over the last several days, and I think we've come out on the right side. And it's not only what we are doing as we evaluate the opportunity, but it's what somebody like the Mountain West Conference and any other conference would be doing, and that is they're vetting us. They are evaluating every single facet of this city, of this university, of our athletic department, of each of our sports teams. We're under a microscope. The good news is I think they liked what they saw, or they wouldn't have extended an invitation to us to join the Mountain West Conference. The opportunity, I think, is historic, and it's interesting how some things come full circle with many of these schools that are in the Mountain West Conference. Obviously, we were members of the same conference at one time, but it just goes to show you 10, 20, 30, 40 years later how some things come full circle. And we recognize, and it's not lost on me as an athletic administrator, the changes that we've seen, we've gone through, and we know in athletic directors around America are all looking for stability. We're looking for maximization of revenue opportunities. We're also looking to provide student athletes with the very, very best opportunities that we can provide for them. And student athlete welfare is a really big deal. We're also looking for something that makes sense in terms of regionality and regional scheduling, because all those things factor into a student athlete's ability to have a great experience. And I think that's one of the things, frankly, across America that we're struggling with as an industry. And we all know what they are. I won't go into the different conferences breaking apart and splitting up and going from East Coast to West Coast. And you know, we're in the Mountain Time Zone. We've been traveling to the Eastern Time Zone. That's a challenge, right? And it's just as big a challenge if we were on the East Coast and you're coming to the Mountain Time Zone, right? It's a challenge for those schools as well. So we recognize that. And we just feel like this opportunity was one that we couldn't pass up. We're grateful for the Mountain West extending an invitation to us. The next thing I'd like to say is this community, El Paso, we have as much potential as any place in the country. It's really limitless. The only limit that is there is the ones we place on it. The only limit is what people in this community will say, I can't do or I won't do, I'm going to wait for this or I'm going to wait for that. The time is now. Since the day I showed up here, the number one question that I have been asked by fans, El Pasoans alike, is when are you going to get us in the Mountain West Conference? When are you going to get us in the Mountain West Conference? Over and over and over. If I had $100 for every single time I've been asked that, we'd have moved to another league a long, long time ago. The truth is you have to be invited. And it's taken a while, and I'll use the metaphor of a chess table with a lot of pieces on the chess table, and that represents a lot of schools, it represents conferences, and there's been a lot of pieces on the chess table that have been moved around and have been taken off the board and put back on the board, and it was finally our turn to be able to get in the game and play and be wanted and desirable and fill a need that people have. But let me just say this to El Paso and our community. The league we're going into is formidable. The league we've been in has been formidable. No one would stand here and say, we've arrived, right? We're the best that there is. That's not the case. We're fighting for and competing for championships, but we have not arrived here, folks. And we won't just show up in the Mountain West because everybody wants us to be in the Mountain Time Zone and play sports and compete. That ain't going to happen by itself. It's only going to happen because we invest in our university, we invest in intercollegiate athletics here, that we invest in the process. And we're not going to climb to the top of the mountain, to use that metaphor, right? At the top of the Mountain West Conference. We're not going to climb there and skip all the steps. You got to take them one at a time. Now, you may take two at a time, but you're going to take every single step to get to the top. And the only way we're going to get there is with the help of the El Paso community. Our business community, every single person, every single citizen, every single alum, every single student, our partners. I'm standing before, GECU's on the backdrop. They're one of our single best partners in this community. They're outstanding partners. We need 10 more just like them. We have 80-some thousand living alums in El Paso. We need to engage them, and they need to get involved with this university for us to be what everybody wants us to be, which is to be the top and to be the best of the Mountain West Conference. So we're going to do our part, and we're going to ask unashamedly, unabashedly, for people to get involved and help us. The time is now. And if we'll do that, this place has no limits. It has no ceiling on our potential. But it's in the hands of El Paso now. You've got what you wanted. We're in the Mountain West Conference. Now let's show that we deserve to be there. So with that, I'll open it up for questions.
I guess, how much did you recruit them? How much selling did you do with them about El Paso? And what's your feeling of what's changed between now and last time they had Real Island?
So the first thing I would say is everybody in the country is prepared for if somebody comes knocking on your door and says, hey, we'd like to talk to you. Everybody's prepared for it, just like we were prepared for it. Now, you may not know who's going to knock on your door and tell you they want to talk to you, but you've got to be prepared for it. And so we've been at that. I promise you, Bob Stoll was at that. My predecessor was at that and thinking about that long before Jim Center ever showed up here. And I've been thinking about it ever since I showed up here, and our team has. And we've been looking at all the opportunities and all the chess pieces on the board. So it's a matter of when the time is right, you present information, you make your case for why we would be appealing, why we're interested. But at the end of the day, somebody has to knock on your door and say, we'd like to talk to you, okay? And that's really where it starts. Because there's no sense trying to sell yourself to somebody that's not interested and you're not even on the board as a potential opportunity. So it's a combination of us sharing what we believe is an amazing university, and with all the great things that are happening at UTEP, sharing what we're trying to get done here and what our vision for the program is to compete for and win championships, and then what are the assets that we have in place, and then obviously being truthful and honest, say, hey, here's where we're not getting it done, and we got to get better, right? But we're intending to do that.
What was just the timeline to how this all came
Yeah, it really started to ramp up basically Friday night, Saturday. So it's been very, very quick. And we followed the Conference USA bylaws in terms of Dr. Wilson reaching out and talking to the Commissioner of Conference USA and letting her know that we've been approached and that we're going to do some exploration as to what the opportunities may be. So up until that point, it's just been like everybody else has seen on social media, people speculating, people talking, people wondering, and there's been a lot of that, right? And so we're monitoring it. It's very fluid. Last Monday, a week ago, let's see, today's Monday, a week ago, I was in Washington, D.C. at Lead One meetings. And that afternoon and that next morning, on Tuesday morning, is when all the stuff broke about the Pac-12, right? And it was very interesting to read the room with 70-some Division I FBS athletic directors and to see people looking at their phone going, oh my gosh, look at this, right? And that just came out of the blue. But we know it's going to happen at some point. Then the dominoes started to fall, right? Then later on, I think it was the next day or the next day after that, Utah State decided to go to the Pac-12. And so it's just very, very fluid, and it's happening continually, right? We all know, obviously, that for the Mountain West to be a conference, it has to have 8 full-time members. So they're still working on somebody else out there. I don't know who it is, but they're still working on somebody else to bring into the fold.
Who initiated? Was it UTEP or was it Mountain West that initiated the top? Was it Mountain West or was it UTEP?
It's really, I think, what you have to understand is these things do not happen in just one single experience or thing, right? We are interfacing with athletic directors all the time. I interface with athletic directors in the Mountain West Conference all the time, right? We were just a week ago up in Colorado, in Fort Collins, Colorado, playing Colorado State, which was the Mountain West school until it wasn't, right? The very next day, basically. So it just shows you how fluid it is. So we're continually building relationships. We're all telling our story to each other. We're all evaluating each other continually. And then the process happens when someone says, hey, listen, they may be looking. You may get a call. And so ultimately, we got a call from the Mountain West Conference.
Without going into specifics about finances, what kind of a commitment is it in the short term and maybe kind of in the long term joining a conference like this?
Yeah. So every conference, I say every conference to the best of my knowledge, every conference has bylaws, and those bylaws spell out what happens when new members come into their league or when somebody leaves their league, right? And basically, we have them for Conference USA. We had some sense of what they were. Obviously, we're a member of them. We help form those, and so you know what the rules are, so to speak, of engagement. And if you're thinking about getting out or changing conferences, you start to look at, well, what's my exposure? What's my risk? What are the potential costs associated with it? Some of that we know very, very well. Some of it may be more fluid because if it's based on something like revenue projections, that would be like saying you know exactly what the revenue is for this year in FY24 when we don't know what the revenue is for FY24 or FY25 for that matter. You know, as an example, this last year when Liberty went to the Fiesta Bowl, that was a windfall for Conference USA, right? Real big. No one anticipated Liberty was going to go to the Fiesta Bowl and there was going to be that financial windfall. So my whole point is, Adrian, that it's somewhat fluid, but you have a general sense of what it would cost to get out based on what the bylaws say. What you don't know necessarily is the kind of expenses that you may bear going into a conference because you don't have their bylaws, right? So you have your ear to the ground, you're talking to people, you're trying to understand what may be reported out there. If somebody was going into the league prior to us and it was reported out there about what they had to do, which whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, you might have sense of what you think it is, but you don't really know till you know. The other thing is every single conference has the ability to negotiate with each one of the people that they're trying to get to come join their conference, which is what I would expect. We negotiated with the Mountain West Conference. I think what we landed on was something very fair for both them and us, and they'll be doing the same thing with their number 8 school that they're talking to.
Yeah, kind of jumping off just that, it seems like there's a little bit of an arms race out west. Obviously, with Pac-12 trying to rebuild, Mountain West still needing to add that 18. Now that you all are in the Mountain West, how involved can you guys be in terms of also being a recruiter for the Mountain West now to get number 8?
That's a great question, James. I don't know that we'll be called upon, to be a recruiter for the Mountain West Conference. I think the athletic directors and the CEOs within the Mountain West Conference already have a list of schools that they're interested in. Obviously, we ended up being one of them, and they called us. So they have a list of schools that they're interested in talking to. I'm sure they're talking to others right now, trying to fill out that 8th spot. When we were talking with them, we didn't feel like it was really our place to be weighing in any way, shape, or form on what their next moves were, because it's kind of irrelevant. We're not part of the league yet. And we actually won't be part of that league until July 1st of 2026, right? At some point in time, we will be involved with all things related to the Mountain West Conference as we move forward. I don't know exactly how quickly or how soon that will be, but there's issues of national importance, and no, I shouldn't say national importance, but national interest within intercollegiate athletics, right, that we'll weigh in on. Everything from post-house settlement, pre-house settlement, everything from roster caps to revenue share, you name it, all the stuff that we all talk about day in and day out. We're going to be involved in those discussions with our Mountain West colleagues.
How does it improve recruiting?
Well, the first thing I would ask you is, it depends on where you're playing your games. And so obviously we're going to continue to make Texas our home and the #1 place that we recruit, at least for football. I think a lot of our other sports recruit all over the country, right? But for football, that's where we're going to get the majority of our players every single year. Scotty Walden's vision hasn't changed. We're going to win the West, and we're going to win the state of Texas, right? So we're going to stay focused on that. So right now, we don't have a lot of games in the state of Texas. Once Conference USA lost the 6 schools that we lost, and we lost Rice and UTSA, we lost North Texas up north, then that hurt, right? We replaced 3 of those schools with Sam Houston, which is an admirable opponent, and they're coming in here Thursday. Those guys are going to be loaded for bear. No pun intended, right? They're the Bearcats. Isn't that right, Adrian? Yeah, so the Bearcats are coming in. They're going to be loaded for bear. They will have nothing more than to bloody our nose. And we're going to have to rise up and meet the challenge, because they're playing very, very good right now. In a perfect world, we would have games that we could play in Texas, because that's where moms and dads want to come watch their sons and their daughters compete and play on the courts and fields and those kinds of things. So I think that while there is a perceived difference between the Mountain West and Conference USA, on any given day, those 2 teams, if we played each other, it'll be very, very competitive. I'm not saying one's better than the other. I'm just saying it'll be very, very competitive.
Jim, just in accepting a formal invitation, is that meaning like a deal has been finalized? And if so, how long are you seeing UTEP being in the Mountain West Conference, considering I think the Mountain West locked down their 7 members until 2032. So,
Yeah.
What details can you give us about that?
Well, so we have an acceptance document that we have signed, that Dr. Wilson has executed with the blessing of the UT Chancellor and the Regents to be a member of the Mountain West Conference. Their grant of rights that they've got, from what we understand, all 7 of their schools, the remaining schools, to sign goes out until 2032. What happens after that? Who knows, right? I mean, I think that's the fluidity of which we find ourselves in intercollegiate athletics today. If anybody says, I guarantee you this is what it's going to be 5 years from now, 7 years from now, well, I think you say that at your own peril, okay, because it could be totally different. Who knows? I just know this. It's a good move for us because we're going to stay in the Mountain Time Zone for the vast majority of our games. We'll have less travel to the teams in the Mountain West Conference compared to the conference that we've been in. We should have some savings with our budgets because we're more regionally located. It should be a better student athlete experience because they're not traveling as far for as long, and then we can get back to campus and get home. The ability to have a conference opponent that we could actually bus to, which when you think about our entire time in Conference USA, we've never bused to a conference opponent, setting aside our last year with New Mexico State, right? We've always got on a plane for every single sport and had to fly someplace to go play somebody. So the fact that our footprint gets smaller, we remain mostly in the Mountain Time Zone, is a really, really big deal for us. And we have all these rich histories and traditions of previous seasons and games and championships with many of the Mountain West Conference schools.
Jim, you said that this thing happened pretty quick. What was Conference USA's reaction when you approached them about leaving?
Well, Conference USA, obviously, Judy McLeod, the commissioner, does a great job, and this isn't her first rodeo. All right, she's been through this numerous times. They're pros, and that's why having very well written bylaws that just tells you here's the next thing that you do. And nobody wants to take this personal, but sometimes it could feel that way, right? And I know that when obviously the domino effect started with Texas and Oklahoma leaving, going to the SEC. Look at the ripple effect of that all the way down the line. And when we were sitting here and we were one of the 5 remaining schools in Conference USA at that time, it felt pretty personal then, because we were sitting there going, what's going to happen to us? We didn't do anything except get up every day and go to work and work hard, and our kids are trying to compete for a championship. And we found ourselves on the short end of the straw then. And guess what? Contrary to what everybody said and thought, oh, the sky's falling, the sky's falling, you know what? We found some new people that want to come to our league, and it's thriving and doing very, very well. So.
What has been the reaction of coaches and?
Well, I haven't spent a lot of time talking to all of our coaches. We notify our coaches that we're going to be invited, and it's going to be official at 10 o'clock today. So I honestly can't tell you a whole lot. You guys are all welcome to reach out to our coaches and get their take on what their thoughts are. My advice to them, though, is to say, first of all, we're in Conference USA today. Right? We're going to play games this weekend against Conference USA opponents. We're trying to win Conference USA championships this fiscal year, this academic year, and the next year before we would ever transition into the Mountain West Conference. So we cannot lose focus on the fact that we're competing every single day, 365 days a year, until the day when we move into the Mountain West Conference, and then it's just new opponents that we're going to be focused on.
Jim, just looking ahead to that transition period in 2 years, I know the Mountain West is expected to get a lot of money from those exit fees from their 5 former members. How much is the Mountain West going to help you guys in terms of paying that Conference USA exit fee?
Yeah, we feel like we settled on something that is very fair, and I think they feel good about the negotiations, as do we. They will be helping us, and I'll just leave it at that.
So like as far as expenses, it's a big difference travel-wise, right? I mean, you must have gone like, wow, you're going to drop your travel expenses pretty significantly for not having to fly all the way to Virginia.
We have not done a complete analysis of all those costs. I suspect we'll have some savings. I don't know that it will be as great as you think it will be. Anytime that you can fly a direct flight, generally they're cheaper, right? So just, take a look at, go out on Expedia.com and see how many direct flights you can get to all the rest of the Conference USA schools. Anytime you have to stop someplace and get on another plane, it's usually going to cost you more money. So we think we could see anywhere from 10 to 20% savings, which would be great, right? But we're also going to reinvest that money in other areas to become more competitive.
In terms of, no, go ahead.
Do you perceive this helping, like, in terms of like ticket sales from these teams that go to the Mountain West? They have more history, just from a fan perspective. They know these schools as opposed to Kennesaw State or something like that. So do you perceive these helping ticket sales?
Absolutely. And that's one of the big things that it's a call out to all El Pasoans, right? Everybody who's always talked about, we want to play teams we know and we've had a relationship with and we've competed with before. We anticipate ticket sales growing, and we anticipate more people joining the minor athletic club and providing scholarship support and participating in every single way, shape, and form. We need that to happen if we're going to be competitive. And if that doesn't happen, we won't be any more competitive. It's got to happen, Adrian. Absolutely.
The Mountain West obviously looking for an 8th full-time member. I know, New Mexico State's been rumored to be an ideal candidate. Just considering the long rivalry you guys have, and you're renewing a new one with New Mexico, I mean, would you like to see New Mexico State maybe get into the Mountain West? I know you can't speak on their situation, but just from a UTEP perspective, knowing the history between the 2 schools here in the borderline.
Well, let me just say this. I love our rivalries with New Mexico State, right? Whether they're in our conference or not in our conference. And it wasn't until this past year, right, or was it last year? It's all kind of run together. Yeah, we're in our 2nd year, I think. But it wasn't until just this last year that we've been in, 30-some years. You have to go all the way back, I think, to the Border Conference, if my memory serves me right. I don't know how many years ago, Brett, that was, but it was a long time ago before we were in the same league together. Well, nothing kept us from having great games and great rivalries that entire 30, 40-year history, right? So whether they're in our league or not in our league is irrelevant. When we line up against the Aggies on any sport, it is on, right? And I know they feel the same way.
You kind of talked about it earlier, how rapidly the talks develop. Can you just talk with us about the weight of having to make a decision like this so quickly that will set the school up for years in the future?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that we necessarily had to make it so quickly, because it's something that we've been preparing for, if you will, in your mind, the possibilities. Every AD in the country is doing that. Most presidents are doing that, and they're weighing, hey, if this were to happen, what would we do? If that were to happen, what would we do? What would be the investment that it needs to take? What makes the most sense for us geographically? I can tell you Dr. Wilson has been amazing. She is an amazing president, does an amazing job. Her leadership in her thought process and thinking is very deliberate and intentional. She's an outstanding leader, and it was just wonderful as we went through this process. And so I'm thrilled to be able to work for Dr. Wilson, and she's been a star through all of this.
Looking back at the New Mexico State thing, if they don't get taken to the Mountain West, we still want to play them every year.
Absolutely. The biggest challenge for us now will be trying to figure out the scheduling piece, right? So, and I think many of you all know this, we have home and home scheduled. I've been very intentional about trying to schedule in particular football, home and homes. So we have games scheduled with Utah State. We have a game with Nevada out there. We have a series with UNLV. We have a series with San Jose State. We have a series with Texas State. We have a series with Wyoming, right? So basically my non-conference schedule now is going to blow up, right? So we got to go back to the drawing board. I thought I was in really good shape and scheduled out to about 20, 29, 30. Now we're going to have to go back to the drawing board and figure out how do we put this thing back together. And so that'll be one of my number one goals, is how do we get, I talked to Mario, driving back from a luncheon appointment, and we're going to be talking about, hey, how do we move forward and find windows to be able to schedule home and homes with those guys in as many sports as we can possibly play.
What's next?
Yeah, what's next? Wow. I'm just trying to get through the end of the day today. But what's next is we have a long list of things that we're going to have to figure out. Everything from scheduling, the ability to get together with Conference USA and figure out all the things that we need to do to cross every T and dot every I. There are all kinds of things related to when we serve on different committees and different things. As an example, I was selected to serve on the Football Oversight Committee in the Division I Council representing Conference USA. My tenure might be the shortest in history of those two committees, right? Because I don't know what Conference USA will say if they want me to remove myself from those committees immediately, or what we'll do, okay? So I don't know. So we'll have to figure some of those kinds of things out. The Mountain West Conference does not have, hey, one of you guys, can you get the door back there for Jeff Darby? I think, oh, that's not Jeff. Somebody's back there trying to get in there. Let's see, I lost my train of thought there. Sorry about that. I thought that was Jeff trying to get into our press conference. Oh, what are we doing, right? So we have a lot of different things, everything from branding and marketing purposes. Obviously, we're going to have to come up with a campaign to engage this community at a really, really high level. We need to raise money. We have several different initiatives. If we're going to go to that level and we're going to compete, then we've got some work we've got to do to get there, right? It could be facilities and other different things. So we have a ton of work to do there. And then we'll start to get embedded into all things with the Mountain West Conference, everything from their meetings and their schedule of what they do and when they do it and how they do it.
Jim, you said that now the fans finally got what they wanted. That's the Mountain West.
Yeah.
What reaction did you get from your boosters?
Say that one more time.
What reaction did you get from your boosters when you let them know that we're moving as well? UTEP's moving over.
Yeah, I haven't talked to any boosters. I can show you my cell phone right now. There's nearly 100 text messages. I haven't had the time. I've been in meetings nonstop all day long. So, but I'm sure at some point in time I'll start to look at social media, and my sense is it's going very well. This is what I've heard everybody talk about. People are going to be elated. Okay, it's one thing to be elated. It's another thing to be invested. Right? We need our elated people to become investors so that we can climb the mountain together.
And so often these conference moves we look at through the prism of football, obviously with a Power Four and now the expanded playoff. Just how do you see this positioning UTEP to potentially make a run like Liberty did in Conference USA, and how you might?
Yeah, I mentioned this to Scotty Walden. Highest ranked Group of 5. That should be our goal as a football program, right? How do we become the highest ranked Group of 5 team so that we have access to the CFP, right? It was amazing what Liberty did last year. Normally, there's some there's some group of 5 team that is the highest ranked, right? And they get into the New Year's 6 bowl games, and we want to be one of those teams. And I think you saw last year from Liberty the fact that they were 13-0. Gosh, that was really cool, right? And they played in the Fiesta Bowl, much like when you think about, just go back the last 20 years, Boise State was doing that, right? It's been Cincinnati, it's been UCF, it's been Houston. There's been a lot of teams. A lot of those have all They've all gone up into bigger conferences. So, I mean, the goal for us should be to be the best of everybody in the group of 5, and then just let the chips fall where they may. And when we take the courts and the fields to be the very, very best that we can be, represent this university and represent this city and represent the Mountain West Conference and or Conference USA right now, which is what we're in, to be the very best that we can possibly be. Okay.
More questions, guys? All right, thanks for
All right.
coming.
Thanks, everybody. Go Miners.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet, James. Yeah, good seeing you, buddy.
Yeah, good seeing you.
All right. Adrian, thanks. I'm gonna see you at 4.
Yeah, see you at 4.
Good to see you, buddy.